Hey, I'm Paul Rabelais. I'm an estate planning attorney here in Louisiana, and I'm excited about presenting this video because it's information that's not very well known. It can help people save a lot of money. So this video is really for you. You're going to want to watch the whole thing if you or a loved one is either in the nursing home and they're a private pay patient having to incur that entire nursing home cost out of their own pocket, or your loved one is about to go into the nursing home maybe next week or next month, and you're kind of, oh my gosh, is it too late? So one of those circumstances, and your loved one has more than about $70,000 of countable resources. What are countable resources? Things like money in the bank, checking, savings, CDs, investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, traditional, Roth, businesses, real estate that's not your home, real estate that you co-own with others. All those things are countable resources, and the kind of common knowledge is you've got to consume all that on the nursing home until you get down to less than $2,000 before Medicaid will start assisting with the cost of that care. So this video is for you if someone is in the nursing home, about to go in the nursing home, and they have more than $70,000 in countable resources. If they have less than that, it's just the numbers don't work, and the strategy doesn't work as well to protect as much. So what I'm about to show you is, instead of just having to blow through all of the money until you have less than $2,000 remaining, I'm going to show you how to protect at least half of those countable resources, maybe more. So let me give an example. The example is, let's say mom is single and she is about to go into the nursing home. Maybe she's already there, but for whatever illness, she's going into the nursing home maybe next week, next month, and she has $200,000 of countable resources. Let's call it $200,000 in her checking account. She may also have a car or even a home or other exempt assets, but she's got $200,000 in the bank. Family's thinking, oh geez, mom's been saving that to leave it to her two children, and now she's going to have to blow it. It's just not what mom would have wanted. So here's kind of the unofficial barbershop and beauty shop rules around the state are that mom's got to spend all of that money before qualifying for Louisiana's long-term care Medicaid program. Maybe some of the more sophisticated barbershop and beauty shop rules, people start talking about how mom could do a few things to save some of the money, maybe prepay her funeral expenses, pay off her debt if she has any debt, maybe even buy a car. But if mom spends $15,000 prepaying her funeral, she's still stuck with $185,000 that she'd have to spend 100% of at the nursing home, or at least spend that down until she had less than $2,000. And then the word at the nursing home, at the beauty shop, barber shop, is that, well, she can't give it away because that'll make her ineligible for Medicaid for the next 5 years. The $200,000 won't last 5 years in a nursing home, so why give it away and be ineligible for 5 years? She ought to just keep it in her name and then spend it, and then when it runs out, she'll qualify for Medicaid. So all of that, now it's going to get good. So now I want to discuss the relevant provisions in the Louisiana Medicaid Eligibility Manual regarding the return of transferred resources. So I'm going to quote to you, and I'm going to read to you a couple of the provisions of our Louisiana Medicaid Eligibility Manual. So you'll see there at the top, it says Louisiana Medicaid Eligibility Manual, and then you'll see where it says return of transferred resources. Among the provisions in there are a provision that says do not continue to count the uncompensated value of a transferred resource if the original resource is returned. So what that rule means, let's say mom gives $200,000 to her daughter, and then the daughter returns that $200,000 to mom. Because of the rule that says do not continue to count the uncompensated value of a transferred resource if the original resource is returned, Medicaid will look at that as if mom never made a transfer. Yeah, she transferred $200,000, but then her daughter just transferred it right back to her. So the net effect is mom didn't make any transfers. So that's the rule on transferring the entire resource. Then there's another Medicaid provision that says if only a part of the asset or its equivalent value is returned, the penalty period is modified but not eliminated. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. And we have to talk about the penalty period that they talk about modifying. So here's the way that works. When mom originally transferred that $200,000, she wrote a check to daughter for $200,000. Daughter deposits that in daughter's bank account, and then she applies for Medicaid. She has less than $2,000. The doctors say she needs to be in the nursing home. She applies for Medicaid. She's going to be denied because part of the Medicaid application process is Medicaid asks mom, have you made any transfers out of your name? Yeah, I just gave $200,000 to my daughter. Okay, well, you would have been eligible, but you're not because you made that transfer. And so Medicaid's going to assess a penalty period, and that penalty period is calculated by doing a mathematical calculation. The value of the asset transfer, $200,000, divided by $5,000, which as of March 2018 is the new average monthly private pay rate for nursing home services. Divide 200,000 by 5,000. Medicaid says you're going to be ineligible for Medicaid for the next 40 months. The rationale there, if mom would have kept that $200,000 in her name, it would have taken her about 40 months to spend that at $5,000 a month to run out and then be eligible for Medicaid. If she transfers that money to the daughter, mom's going to have no money, but she'll be ineligible for 40 months, and then hopefully daughter still has that money and can use that money to get mom through that 40 months. But here's where the protect half of the money comes into play. So at this point, daughter would then transfer $100,000 of the $200,000 back to mom. So at this point, mom had transferred $200,000 to daughter. Daughter transfers $100,000 back to mom. That's what triggers the if only a part of the asset or its equivalent value is returned, the penalty period is modified but not eliminated. So the net effect of what mom did is she transferred $100,000 by transferring $200,000 and daughter transferring $100,000 back to mom. The net is mom transferred $100,000. So Medicaid will now modify the penalty period, and that new penalty period is based on a $100,000 transfer divided by 5,000. So the new penalty period that Medicaid will let mom know exists it's reduced from 40 months to 20 months. Okay, so now it's starting to get good. Now daughter has $100,000 in her bank account. Mom has $100,000 in her bank account. Mom's in the nursing home and she has to get through a 20-month penalty period. She will use the $100,000 that is in mom's bank account to get through that 20-month penalty period. And again, going back to the penalty period, I just want to kind of go back and reference another provision in our Medicaid manual regarding the penalty period begin date. This is really critical, and it takes a while for people to understand this. The penalty period for assets transferred for less than fair market value begins the month the applicant is determined eligible for Medicaid except for the transfer of resources. So the penalty period can't even start until mom is in the nursing home and she has less than $2,000 in her name. So she had to do that big transfer to get everything but $2,000 out of her name to make her eligible for Medicaid except for the transfer of resources. So you can't do this stuff from home, but if you set it up right, it's going to really help the family save a lot of money. Okay, so going back, mom's in the nursing home. She transfers $200,000. She applies for Medicaid. She gets denied. 40-month penalty period. Daughter returns $100,000 to mom. They go back to Medicaid to modify the penalty period. Medicaid modifies it to 20 months. Mom spends the $100,000 that's in her name to get her through the 20 months. 20 months later, mom has less than $2,000 in her name. Her penalty period has expired, and daughter's still sitting with $100,000. So that's the idea, gone through fairly quickly. And a couple of things to keep in mind. One is this is a kind of Louisiana only fact pattern and set of rules. If you live in a state outside of Louisiana, or your loved one who is in a nursing home is outside of Louisiana, you'll need to find out how your state looks at the return of transferred resources. In fact, in our Louisiana eligibility manual, there is an example, which is exactly like the example that I gave you with mom and daughter. I just changed some of the numbers because in the state's example, I like to use rounded numbers, 200,000, 100,000. In our example, it talks about how the original transfer was $70,453, and then there was a return of $23,000. Other than that, the example that I gave you is just like this one. In this one, it talked about the original transfer being done in October of 2008, caused a penalty period until 2010, but with the return of transferred resources, it modified the penalty back to 2009, saved that family a big chunk of money. So there actually is an example that I rely on for purposes of this particular strategy. So again, my guess is this actually happened with these numbers and these dates about 10 years ago. So Louisiana just plugged it in as an example in Louisiana's Medicaid eligibility manual. The other thing I want to caution you on is don't try this at home. It's complicated. You have to get it right the first time. There's lots of documentation with the complicated application process, with the denial, with the starting of the penalty period, with the financial transactions that are involved, and the documentation required both from the financial institutions and to the Medicaid office. And because there's so much at stake, you want to make sure you work with the right people and get it right the first time. Don't try this at home. Another point to keep in mind is what this is all about is actually what I don't prefer to do, which is having to do this stuff at the last minute. People call our office, oh my God, we're putting dad in the nursing home tomorrow. He's got money in the bank. What do we do? Stress, last minute. It's difficult. But sometimes that's the circumstances we're faced with. This is going to let people protect at least half of the money they have. But if you plan ahead, years in advance of going into the nursing home, you not only protect half of what you have, you protect 100% of what you have. So the earlier you take care of these things, the better. Also, it's important that when you're engaging in something like this, your child or your children will often be a party to this. They need to be cooperative and supportive. Doesn't do anybody any good if mom transfers $200,000 to daughter and she goes out and snorts that money up her nose. That's just not going to work. So we got to make sure everybody's on board. So what do you do from here if you're in a set of circumstances where you perhaps have a spouse, a parent, another loved one who is either in the nursing home or they're about to go in and they have countable resources, then they want to protect some of that. Really, because people aren't aware of this, you probably just need to call our office and just, when you call, you might want to say something like, I want to find out if the transfer and return strategy would work for my family to protect our estate. And then we can find out what the circumstances are and see if something like this would be appropriate for your family, your loved ones, and just take it from there. So I hope that helps. Little known strategy, been around for 10 years or more, can really help families who need to protect what they have, who don't have millions and millions of dollars, but have worked hard to save what they have. This will help families, protect a significant portion. I'm Paul Rabelais, estate planning attorney throughout Louisiana. Now go out and have a great day.